and welcome to the WOC Inspire Her Stories by women like you, where women share their stories and their business journey to inspire other females to follow their ambitions and find their purpose. My name is Samadhi Torres, and I will be your host today. Our guest speaker, Sabrina Matera, is the CEO of Design Matters and has established a 17-year career steeped in design leadership, business, and brand consulting. Her firm, founded in 2014, is an award-winning boutique design consultancy offering creative strategy and storytelling services for companies of all capacities. She has led the creation of brand programs, digital and interactive initiatives for both inside the enterprise and external communication affairs, and marketing solutions for a diverse set of powerhouse clients. Sabrina Matera, it's a pleasure to introduce you.
Thank you.
And welcome and thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be
here. For having you today.
Thank you so much.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and how we ended up here today.
Oh my gosh. So where do I start? I don't even know. I'm a family of immigrants. I am from the Dutch West Indies. I'm from Guyana. So I grew up here. I came here when I was like 4 or 5. I saw my parents work very hard. They did the hustle, and eventually they started their own business and became entrepreneurs. So of course it was the natural thing for me to do, just follow suit, and I wanted to make them proud and do the same thing. So it was more finding my way, finding my path. But my path is a little different because my parents are in real estate and construction. So I was a creative person. Like, where do I fall in this? So my path started, I guess in school. I was very artistic, and I started in architecture. I thought I was going to be an architect. I went to NYT in the city. I said, this is it. This is what I wanted to be. And I actually hated it. I didn't like it. I flunked. No, I did really well in the program, but I just didn't see myself there. And a lot of people, I guess, go through these things where they go to college and they think that's what they want to be, and then they find out it's not. So I had a professor kind of point me in the right direction of communication arts, and that was the direction I followed and ended up graduating with a degree in graphic design. Fast forward, I worked for a lot of different companies. I started in production. I worked at Viacom, MTV. I thought TRL was like the thing to be at the time. It's like, what is production? And little did I know that experience was going to build me and build my career path, and that's where I started. So I started working for all these top agencies in New York City, bounced around from company to company. I'm like working for Saatchi and Saatchi and all these big agencies, but I didn't realize it at the time. I said, oh my gosh, I don't like agency life. And I just slowly, I gained the experience because that's how I was, raised. You have to pay your dues. You have to work for a company for X amount of years, and it looks good on paper and on a resume. But inside of me, I was always, I felt like I was always trying to please this mold, this mold that society had made for us, and I didn't fit it. I didn't want to do a 9 to 5. I would leave an agency early, and they're looking at me like, why is she leaving? And I'm like, goodbye.
You knew that wasn't your place.
It wasn't my thing. I was a creative person, but I knew when I was, I could utilize my time and utilize it effectively and get the job done, and then walk away and preserve my energy for something else. But I didn't feel like it worked in that setting. So fast forward even more, I worked for an in-house agency where the CEO gave me this leverage to just start this in-house agency and push it forward. And it gave me the freedom to create what I wanted in a business landscape, in a creative landscape, and I loved it. I was able to find talent, train people, and, build this agency that I always dreamt of, but it wasn't my company. So, I think that was the point in my career where I realized, oh my gosh, I finally put in all this work, and, my heart got broken because the business aspect came into play, and I was told, oh, you make too much. I realized I was just a number. And that was where I had to, kind of make a decision and figure out what do I want to do. And, I gracefully exited. I said, you don't have to say more. I can see myself out, and I'll find my path. And, I think it was a point in time where I realized, like, oh my gosh, I don't want someone to direct my life. I need to take control and switch it up here. This is not the way.
Oh, wow.
It's not the direction I want to go in.
Yeah, it was, I guess, that aha moment for you.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
In time, that pivotal time where you said something needs to change, right? Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? So tell me a little bit more about that.
It was a couple of aha moments. I realized, like, my passion was multifaceted. I came from architecture. I had this 3-dimensional look on not only my career, but life. And, I wanted that work-life balance. And I was trying so hard to make it work, but I felt like, I wasn't getting there fast enough. And, people say you can't build a business overnight. And it's true, you can't. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of, I doubt myself. I would say I want to work for myself. I want to be in control of my destiny, but it can happen fast enough for me. So I ended up working for a consultancy where I learned more about business and sales, and that's where I found my niche. I found that I was a good designer. I was a business designer. So I left the glamorous life of, like, making things look good on the outside. And then I started shifting that to an internal corporation. How do I make that look glamorous for business executives? And, people think, PowerPoint is boring. That was my place that I started, and I said, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to make something great of it. And I started focusing on business design, and that was my strength. It was an essential thing, and it was something that would never go out of style, and I didn't have the competition. So I used that as my strength to move forward, and that's how I started building my network. I started connecting with other consultants, other leaders. I was fortunate to learn from a lot of people in the industry older than me that kind of took me under their wing. They taught me a lot about the business, and I built so many relationships that when it was time for me to leave, I didn't know when I left, actually. I had my second child, and it just fell on my lap. I had a former colleague reach out to me, and she said, Sabrina, I have a branding project for you, and I think you'd be great, but you don't have a business. And I didn't have Design Matters formed at the time. Okay. So I formed an LLC literally overnight. I formed an LLC. I designed my website in like a day or 2 days. I did everything I could to just put this business together that I knew was there, but it didn't come to life. And here I got thrown into it. Mm-hmm. And she said, I have a job for you, but of course you need to look nice for procurement. And I did it. And I never looked back. It was my first job. It was a pharmaceutical company, a vaccine client. And I always was, in the life sciences world and healthcare. So it came natural to me. So all of those experiences that I had, it just kind of came to that realization at that point, and I was able to apply it. And I said, oh my gosh, I have my own business. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it. So I started it, and I never looked back. I worked 9 to 5 while I started that business, and I managed both until I felt my time was right to leave. And it took a couple of years.
So you were still working in the corporate setting, but still working through, you're building your own business on your own.
Oh, yes. And it was a struggle because I think a lot of people can relate to this because you work for a company for so many years and you start to lose your identity. And I felt like I was losing my identity. And I said, I had to, that's where, I focus on helping others with Design Matters. How do you separate your personal brand from your corporate, your company brand? Because God forbid something happens and you get let go. What do you have to show for that?
Right.
Like, what is your identity? You have to have something to platform off of. And when I was let go, I experienced that. And I said, oh my gosh, I have to build my brand. And I don't know what my brand is. I should have been building it this whole time, and I wasn't doing that. So that, that had there was a lot of layers to how I built the company and what it is today. It's not a traditional design agency. It's based on an old school model, but it's more of a disruptive outlook. It's a little bit of, building your brand and making sure you have that awareness built, to keep up with today's standards, which is a little insane. But not only that, it's like, do you have all those things realized? Like, what is your vision, your mission? What are you trying to solve for your clients? So it's strategy, it's creative, it's, branding yourself. It's many different things. I was lost. I was lost, and I went through that identity crisis. And, I don't want people to see this and say, have pity. I want them to say, oh my gosh, am I experiencing that? Mm-hmm. I need to change it. I need to make that move and start building my brand, build my business in the meantime, and, make it happen, because nobody's going to do it for you.
Right. So I know that you talked about some challenges that you faced throughout, your journey. What are some of the things people told you you'd never be able to do? I ask you because, I truly believe that with our journey, there always comes those people who don't believe in us, that will be able to make it through. So was there someone along the way, you don't have to name, put any names or anything on, on the record, but, what were some of those experiences like for you?
There's a lot. I think as a woman, there's a lot of really good qualities that come with being in business that you can apply in that world. But then there's also qualities that have hurt me. And, I've learned throughout, my journey that I've had people just put me in a box and not, contest me in an outright manner, but kind of say, oh, you're worth, an hourly, or you're worth an hourly rate. And I had to say, no, it doesn't work that way in my world. I work off of a retainer. And this is how I ballpark. This is how I estimate my jobs. I'm going to tell you how I work based off of my experience. And I've had people try to, put me in a box and say, oh, you're like an entry level designer. No, I compounded my experience for a reason, because that's why, I'm an agency. That's how I can sell my services. That's why I am of value to a corporation. So usually when I've encountered episodes like that, I say, this is not the right client. It's a waste of time.
Let's move on.
Let's move on to the next one. But, I've had so many challenges, and I still do. Like, nobody's perfect. You're always building your business and evolving, adapting, and post-COVID, pre-COVID, it's like a completely different landscape, and it's still changing. And, I experience challenges even now. But I think it's more of, you have to have the confidence and assert yourself. And I find that in my previous life of working, like, I was just very quiet. I was always the quiet person. I was always shy growing up. I never wanted to like get in front of a classroom and speak. I sucked at public speaking. Don't ask me to do that.
Oh, you know, there's two things that people are most afraid of. And the first thing is dying.
Yes.
You know, and the second thing is public speaking. So it's a real, you know, fear.
I remember, you know, just like having to do presentations and getting in front of a room with executives, and I was like so scared. But then once I talked about my work, it became second nature because that was what I lived and breathed. Like that was, you know, my baby, my creative work. It just took its own life form, and I became a different person. So, you know, it's crazy, you know, just talking about it in that way, because I was always a quiet person, and I always thought my quiet power lied in my work. Like if I had to sell something, I didn't really talk. I just designed something and then I put it in front of the client, and I let that speak for itself. But then I realized, you know, you can't really sell it until you, you know, give that voiceover and you talk about how it could be utilized. So I did learn a lot with the consulting company, how to marry the creative and the business aspect together, and how to bring things to life. And it's helped me, and you know, it's also helped me train others and give them that that motivation and that extra encouragement that, you know, you're super talented and you can do this. You just have to verbalize that and communicate. Communication is just like so key. And you just, as a woman, sometimes you underestimate yourself. And I did that a lot. I did a lot early on in my career. I always, you know, thought that, you know, maybe I wasn't good enough, or I would look at others and say, I'm not as good as they are, or, you know, maybe I could be a little bit better. But, you know, it was a motivator too. Right. Because you always want to be better.
Right. You mentioned that when you were given the opportunity of a platform to talk about, you know, your design and your creativity, that you almost kind of stepped into somebody else. And I'm hearing you, but I'm seeing it more as you really stepped into yourself and who you truly are. And this is why it was so easy for you to be able, you know, to talk about that, to express that, and to because it comes so naturally to you. Yeah. So I have a quote here that you had mentioned to me was one of your favorite quotes. Life is not about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself, by George Bernard Shaw. How does this resonate for you? And, you know, what do you have to tell our listeners about this particular quote?
I think it strikes a chord with me, but it also strikes a chord with a lot of people nowadays, because a lot of people want to find their path, and they talk about, you know, getting to the essence of who they are. Right. But you have to wake up every day and you have to take control and create your destiny. And that's what I live and breathe every day. So it's so fitting, because it's like my mantra. And like, you know, every day, if I can do something to move the needle just a little bit every day to get closer to the goals that I have, like, I know I'm happy, I'm satisfied, and, you know, I could rest easy. So I think, you know, I hope that that's inspiring for a lot of people, because it's all I live by.
Oh, Sabrina, thank you so much. I mean, you know, you and I have spoken about your journey. You've inspired me, and I know so many of our listeners today who's tuned in. You know, your story is really, truly amazing, and I'm so thankful that I was able to host and to, you know, ask you about your journey. And yeah. Someday, who knows? For more stories about successful professional women, be sure to subscribe. Thank you for our presenting sponsor, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey. And we'll see you at the next episode.